What's going on, everyone? So today we are doing the mage class. Last video we went over all the hunter builds, and today we're going to be doing every single mage build, with a caveat being that this video is going to be part 1 of part 2. If you guys don't know, which I believe most of you do, there are far more mages in this game than any other class. I believe there's 24 hunters, and then I think there are 23 assassins. And similar to that with warriors, and I think there's only 20 warriors. And then similar to that, I think there are only 20 something guardians. But with mages, there are 37 mages. And if you've seen my last one, it was almost 2 hours long. So if I made this an entire video, one and done, it would be almost 4 hours long. So I'm just going to do a part series to just the mages. Every other class will be a separate own video, seeing as there are a lot less. Part 2 will come out very shortly after this, but we're going to go ahead and get into it. Very similar to the Hunter video I made, you're going to see a lot of builds. They are going to be very generalized. So there might be certain items that you may be able to fit in different areas of the build, and it can still work. But similarly, all the builds that I'm going to give you today are going to be good to go and will work for you majority of the time. So with that out of the way, let's get into Agni. So Agni, very bursty god. He basically has 3 ultimates. But let's get into the starter item. So this one I'm going to explain very similar to Hunters. Towards the beginning of this video, I'm going to be, explaining why I go the builds I go, and when you would go certain items, and why you would go these certain items in situations. And as the video goes on, I'm just going to go rapid speed, sort of, as you guys should know by then. But if you don't, then come back to this section, as you will get a full explanation. But we're going to start out with the first starter item, and I like to go conduit gem on most of my mages that do burst damage. Now you can go Sands of Time here as well, as this is a very good item too. I believe conduit gem does more damage initially and is very good to go as well. Sands of Time later in the game definitely has better options for you, as Conduit Gem really only has that upgraded in Gem of Focus being really good right now. Archmage's Gem is okay, but not as good as Gem of Focus. Whereas Sands of Time, you have really good damage with your Pendulum of Aegis, doing insane amounts of damage with your passive. Whereas the Alternate Timeline gives you a crazy passive too, where you get basically another life. And in Joust is a lot more significant than Conquest. So there are your options there. But we're going to go over when you would and when you wouldn't. One thing with Conduit Gem, there is a caveat for it having a limited use. Like I said with Sands of Time, Conduit Gem doesn't really have a lot of use outside of just the damage it does. It has mana and MP5, which is nice. But with Sands of Time, you can kind of go in any other item you want, even with Chronos, whereas Conduit Gem, you basically have to go into a Chronos pendant, otherwise you're not going to get a lot of cooldown, whereas Sands of Time offers you that 10% cooldown, and eventually into a Pendulum of Aegis, which will give you 10, but ordinarily you're not going to get into that starter item currently, but Sands of Time gives you that cooldown reduction, whereas Conduit doesn't. So usually if you do want to play it safe, your options are probably going to want to go into Sands of Time, as this does really well with Chronos too. But if you've seen my videos, I think Conduit is better, more fun, damagey item that I like to go. But for the sake of the video, let's stick with what I would build, while keeping in mind that Sands is perfectly fine. Got a little lag spike there. All right, so you do want to go into your Conduit for your beginning part of this build. Then after that, you definitely want to go into your Bow. Bow is going to be your main recipe for most of your mages, outside of a couple. Then at this point, you do want to go into your first Chronos pendant. Your Chronos pendant being 550, Conduit Gem being 700. So you will have 1250 gold, meaning that you can go into 3 health pots, very similar to that. You can go into 2. If you want multi-pots, you can as well. That is fine too. Now going into the build, obviously you want to go into your Chronos pendant. Finally build that. After this, there are a lot of options you can go. But before I say that, you do want to make sure you get your Chalice of the Healing, very similar to every other class I'm going to go into. You get your Chalice of Healing after you get your first built item. From here, you have a different couple of paths here. If you are going up against damagey backliners, so they have basically a tank, a hunter, and a mage, for example, you do want to go into a Spear of Desolation and then into a Divine Rune. This is something I really like to go. As you both get Flat Pen, also you get a little bit of cooldown with Spear of Desolation, meaning you have 30% plus Conduit Gem, and your magical penetration will be doing, you have 15 Flat Pen for Spear of Desolation and Divine Rune, meaning you have 30 Flat Pen. And if you know anything about how you build against a double squishy team versus a double tank team, this is what you want to do if you're going up against a squishy team, as 30 Flat Pen is going to do a lot more to those backline gods, seeing as they're not building any tank items, meaning that you'll be able to go past their protections and do even more damage rather than going percent pen. After that, you want to go into Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver, very similar to your Kins. Your fifth item is going to be where you want to build this item right around this time. Just imagine this is a Kins for magical ability gods. Is very similar to Heartseeker as well, but is a lot cheaper. Gives you a lot of power, a decent amount of power, at least 300 mana, and basically a Kins passive or a Heartseeker passive. After that, your final item does want to be a Rod of Tahuti. Rod of Tahuti just does everything well. And then also you can upgrade into the upgraded glyph. Usually it depends on what god you want to go, but basically Calamitous Rod, think of this as your rod that does a lot more damage, to an extra dish of damage to the gods that you're going to be attacking. And your Perfected Rod is more of your movement speed, being able to be able to get away from gods, or being able to get into the fight with gods. That is your two options there. Usually it depends on what god you want to go with. Agni, your Calamitous Rod is probably something you would rather do, but this is your final build, and similar to your upgrades, you're not really going to get your upgraded starter. But if you do end up wanting to try and do that, you're almost all the time going to get Gem of Focus. Gem of Focus just gives you it gives you a lot of power, health, and MP5, but also its passive, stacking up to 3 times, can give you up to 15% movement speed and a 15% damage increase, which is really good. Having a 15% damage increase is always nice to have. So if you do want to go the upgraded starter, you go into Gem of Focus. But if you don't, and a lot of times you do sell your Conduit Gem because you have a lot of gold and you're not level 20 yet, you do want to go into an Ethereal Staff, as this is a very good, a little bit different, nuanced version of Soul Reaver, but has the same idea where you take 6%, you steal 6% maximum health from the target, as well as you steal mana. You steal 8% of maximum mana and 6% of maximum health. And this does do really nicely against tanks, but even against those squishy targets, you're going to be stealing a lot of stuff from them, meaning that you're not, they're not going to be able to have, they're going to have 8% less mana and 6% less health total. So that's just really good to go late game as well. Now, this is your build if you're going up against squishies. One thing that you do want to keep in mind, let's go ahead and get rid of, let's go put these other two items I'm going to be talking about right here. So like I said, this build is what you would go if you went squishy team, if you're going up against a squishy team, as you have double flat pen and all of that good stuff. We're going to pretend like we're going up against a tank team, however. You're going to get your starters as you normally would. You go into your Chronos Pendant, and from here, instead of going into your Spear of Desolation or Divine Rune for that flat pen, you're going to go straight into an Ob Shard as your other option if you're going up against a double tank team. Ob Shard has been recently buffed to where it now gives you an extra 20% magical penetration on your first ability cast. So if you're playing Agni, for example, and you use your 2 and it hits them, you're basically doing a 40% magical penetration. And what's really good with this build is that once you build Ob Shard, the rest of your build path is going to be very similar. You can go into your Spear of Desolation at this point, or if you're going up against a team that's healing a lot, you can then go into your Divine Rune. But if not, then you can just, and they're not healing, then you can just go into your Spear of Desolation. From there, you go into your Soul Reaver, and then your final item is going to be Rod of Tahuti. And then, of course, your upgraded version is still going to be the same. You want to go into Gem of Focus, or if you want to sell it, you go into Ethereal Staff. One thing about the Ob Shard build that is really, really good is the fact that the passive of Ob Shard gets you up to that 40% magical penetration cap. However, it pushes past it, very similar to Dominance's passive, and will go past and give you 50% magical penetration if you do build this as well. So you don't have to worry about overcapping with its passive, as its passive is just an additional thing that stacks on top of it. So you don't have to worry about that either. So that is your build if you want to go tanky. And like I said, if you want to go, if you're up against a double squishy team, the other build that I gave you earlier will be good as well. Now, one last thing before I go on to the next build, you can always just be safe if you want to. You don't have to go the double flat pen build. I just really enjoy it as you are able to destroy the tank or the backline and basically inhibit their team from being able to do anything, really. So if you do just want a regular general safe build, you can always go into your Conduit Gem, Chronos Pendant. From here, you either go in Divine for anti-heal or Desolation if they don't have anti-heal. And then you can go into your Ob Shard, Soul Reaver, Tahuti, and then either your upgraded starter or your Ethereal Staff selling your Conduit Gem. This build right here is very, very good as well, and is your general build that you can always build anytime if you want to instead of building the situational ones. But this is your general Agni build, and this will definitely set the pace for a lot of your other mages. Next up, we do have the man himself. We have Puch. Not the best god, but can be very good and oppressive if you play him correctly. Now, Puch is a very standalone guy. He doesn't have a lot of escapes. And because of that, he does have a lot of tricks up his sleeve, being his passive, allowing him to basically throw out his abilities, his Undead Surge, which throws out bodies, and his 3, which throws out a body. And if you walk over it, you get some restored mana and health, 5% and 3% of maximum mana. So that is your basic idea of kind of peeling for yourself, seeing as you can't peel for yourself, generally speaking. But if you do want to play Puch, his build is going to be a little different, and keep in mind that Puch is an outlier among a lot of the gods, as you can go a lot of things. You can even technically go hybrid with him. However, I'm not going to be building that because I don't think it's the best for him. Now, this is going to be a general build, like I said, but it's going to be even more general compared to the other ones. So, unlike what I said earlier, I think Sands of Time is really your best option here. Conduit Gem doesn't really work here. You can if you want to, but Sands of Time giving you that extra cooldown, which you're definitely going to need as Puch, and the MP5 is going to help you a lot. After this, you absolutely want to go into Bow. You need to have a lot of cooldowns on him, or at least a decent amount of cooldown to where you can throw out your abilities a lot. After this, you do want to go into a first tier of Book of Thoth. Now, you may be thinking that Thoth, why Thoth? Well, Book of Thoth, we will get to, actually. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But from here, you do have 650 plus 700, meaning you do have 1350 gold, which means you can only buy 3 consumables. So you do want to make sure you get a healing pot and maybe 1 mana pot. But with your Sands of Time, along with your blue buff, which you should be picking up, you should be fine early game. And that is your start. Next up, you want to go into your Book of Thoth. Like I said, I got a little bit ahead of myself, but you do want to go into Book of Thoth, I believe. Book of Thoth has been recently nerfed into the ground. They've been buffing it up a little bit, so it isn't the worst item in the world anymore. It used to be really bad. It's now a decent item, but only niche on some gods, and I think Puch is one of them that gets a lot of value out of this. With this, the amount of mana you get, you also gets converted into power, and then also, I don't remember how much mana you get anymore. They nerfed and changed this item so much, but you do get a lot of mana in your mana pool. So not only are you going to be getting a lot of MP5 from this and Sands of Time, and hopefully your blue buff, the amount of mana you have should make you just be able to throw out your bodies whenever you want. After that, a bit of a weird build, but then again, Puch is weird. I like going into Chronos Pendant after this. You do have 30% CDR, and if you do have your blue buff, you should get max. But otherwise, this is your first 3 items, as you do have a lot of MP5. You also get more MP5 with Chronos, which, if you didn't know, has that. But really, you want this for your cooldowns. From here, you do want to go into a Staff of Mirrodin. Mirrodin is really good on Puch, as this does give you a bit of cooldown, so you're maxing out your cooldown. Now, if you do pick up blue buff, you're going to go over cap, but that's totally fine. As Outwash, you want to make sure you have as much cooldowns as you can, just in case if you need to peel for yourself and you just throw out your bodies and just basically heal yourself up to full. As if, you know, you can't do that, your allies aren't peeling for you, or they're not being able to peel enough for you, you can throw out your bodies and heal yourself. But specifically, this gives you that little bit of magical penetration, but its passive is really good. After you throw out your ult, you actually do 20% increased damage, meaning that you can throw out your ult and do even more damage with Staff of Mirrodin. So Staff of Mirrodin is going to be your 4th item. And then, of course, your Soul Reaver is going to be here always for you. Soul Reaver is similar to that Kins. It's always going to be later into the build around that 5th item slot. That's very good. And then finally, very similar to Agni, you're going to go into your last item, Rod of Tahuti. With him, though, I would upgrade into a Perfected Rod instead. Perfected Rod is probably is a little bit better on Outwash because he needs speed. He needs to be speedy. The extra damage that you do get from the other one, Calamitous, isn't going to be that significant anyways. So you do want to make sure your Perfected Rod is going to be your upgrade for Outwash. It'll be your last item. And then, of course, if you do want to upgrade your starter, you can upgrade this into a... I'm sorry, not Pendulum of the Aegis. What am I thinking of? Sands of Time. Let's just do that. And then you do want to go into your alternate timeline. I believe alternate timeline is best for Outwash, not only for the passive that'll make you basically have an extra life, but also it doesn't overcap your CDR, but specifically it does give you a little bit of physical and magical protections, which will be good, very good late game, as you'll probably get one-shotted easy. So if you do want to do that, you go into Sands of Time or alternate timeline. But if you do want to sell your Sands of Time, you should probably go into a Ethereal Staff. Ethereal Staff is very good on him too. And this is basically your build. You have all that. You can go into alternate timeline or Ethereal Staff. But like I said, with Outwash, you can do a lot with him. So you can even go hybrid on him, but I'm not going to build that. But one item I do want to mention, just as like an honorable mention, I suppose, is Gem of Isolation. Now, Gem of Isolation is a it's not really a good item. But on Outwash, you can build this, as this does have a little bit of power, but specifically in its passive, enemies hit by your damaging abilities will move 30% slower and will have their shield and will have shields applied on them reduced by, that's just a little bit of extra whatever they added on that. But specifically, it's the 30% slow that will be very good on him. As you know, in his 2, is it his 2? I don't play him all that much. I think it's his 1 then. I believe it's his 1 that gives him a slow. Up to 40%, yes. Up to 40% slow. So you add that on top of Gem of Isolation, that's a 70% slow, as there's no cap on that, or similar caps to like other things like cooldown and protections, for example. So you can go Gem of Isolation and just be incredibly oppressive with that. Now, probably instead of, if you wanted to go Gem of Isolation, you would probably do that instead of your Mirrodin. Mirrodin is probably the one item you're probably going to want to change that for, but generally speaking, that is just an honorable mention you can think about when building this god. But other than that, that is your Outwash build. Next up, we have the Gooby himself. We have Anubis. Now, he is an interesting one. I mean, not a very common build, I will say. He can be an extremely oppressive, just fucking burst god. That basically one-shots you if you don't play it correctly, or if you get hit by his 2 and you don't have beats. Now, with him, there are only a select few items that you really want to go on him. Now, there are a little bit more situational items you can go on him. He's really only built to be a bursty god. So on Anubis, sorry, I don't know why I said that twice. On Anubis, you can think about, there's 2 paths you can go in terms of your starter items. You do have your Vampiric Shroud. And for obvious reasons, you can build into this, as this gives you 6% lifesteal, and that's basically what your starter is going to do. And Anubis is one of those gods that you do want lifesteal on. Now, but in my opinion, the better starter is Sands of Time. And why do I think Sands of Time is better? The build path you're going to be going down Anubis is not going to have a lot of cooldown. On top of that, you are going to have MP5 for you. Now, I wouldn't say that you're not going to have a lot of cooldown with the build I'm talking about, but normally speaking, there's only one item that you get cooldown on, and it can be situational. You don't have to build the potential item that I'm going to be talking about, but usually Vampiric Shroud or Sands of Time is good on him. It's just what you really want. Also, Vampiric Shroud I think with the new cap of lifesteal, which I believe is 40 on magical gods and 50 on physical, I believe this may overcap a little bit, and I think Sands of Time, you definitely get more utility out of that. But let's go into our bow and into our first item, and you can probably guess it, Bancroft's. The most obvious god here for Bancroft's is going to be Anubis. So this is going to be 550, so you are going to have a little bit more gold. So you can definitely build your chalice, as this will give you just the perfect amount for a chalice. I typed in 300. I meant to type in chalice. The chalice costs 300. So you're able to, oh, that's with the Vampiric Shroud. Never mind. You cannot do that with the Sands of Time build that I'm talking about. With the Sands of Time build, because it is 700, you are only going to get a couple of pots. My bad. You're only going to be able to get 3 health pots with your 2 mana pots. Whichever one you want more, multi-pot or mana pot. From here, like you can guess, we're going to go straight into a Bancroft's Talon. Let's unequip that. And then you're going to go into your Chalice after you build your Bancroft's Talon. From there, I'm actually going to put this up. No, I'm not. I'm going to leave that right there. I'm all over the place here. Bear with me. So your Chalice. From here, this item, which I said is going to be situational, you don't necessarily have to go, but I do like putting a Chronos pendant on him, that just because you have 30% cooldown, so you just throw out your abilities, and your abilities should be back up relatively soon with your Bountiful Boa on top of that as well. So you should have very good cooldowns with him. Now, the problem with Anubis is that he is very gankable and very easily killable, which is sort of why he's not the greatest in any type of game mode, but he does make up for that with his damage. So having a lot of cooldown is going to help you with that. So if you miss all your abilities, or you use all your abilities and you can't do anything but walk away, seeing as he doesn't have any mobility, you can bank on the fact that your cooldowns are going to be relatively low, considerably, and comparatively to any type of other build you may think of. That is precisely why you want to go cooldown on Anubis. After that, another item that is very good on him is Typhon's Fang. The good old Bancroft's Typhon's Fang synergy with Bancroft's Talon and Typhon's Fang. Typhon's Fang, if you don't know, does it gives you increased healing, so you are able to get increased healing from Bancroft's Talon and potentially your Vampiric Shroud if you go for that starter item. But specifically, the main thing you always want to keep in mind is the bottom text of the passive, where your magical power is increased by twice the amount of magical lifesteal you have. So at this point, if we can look at the lifesteal, is 20 lifesteal. Oh, it does say 40. Okay, so I was right. 20, you have 20 lifesteal, which means that you are going to be getting 40, which I believe is what that's supposed to mean. So you will be getting 40 extra power just because you have lifesteal. Which is also another reason why you might want to go Vampiric Shroud. But with that, you want to build that too. So even if you are getting anti-healed by the enemy team, which they should be if you're going up against Anubis, you do always want to build anti-heal. Your healing will be reduced, of course, but that is just kind of the idea with Anubis. You're either going to be healing a lot or you're going to be healing none in terms of the enemies building correctly. But always keep in mind that the magical power will always be increased by twice the amount of magical lifesteal you have. So it doesn't really matter that, because you'll always have a certain amount of lifesteal just based on your kit. So you'll always be getting more power out of that as well. Additionally, it does have 20% magical penetration, which is crazy. That's basically having an Op Shard or a Charon's coin. So you do have 20% magical penetration. So that's very good there too. From here, I do like going into a Spear of the Magus. This also works really well with his kit, as you get 8% lifesteal. You do get 10% magical penetration, almost getting to that max amount. Then you're getting 75 power, and then on top of that, you do damage enemy gods, or you make it to where you mark an enemy and they get increased 5% damage to all of the sources. So you're basically just stripping 5% of protections from them, basically, is what you're doing with this item on top of that too. So very, very good item to synergize with Anubis. And then finally going into a Rod of Tahuti. Rod of Tahuti will be very good here. It maxes out your percent pen on top of the already crazy amount of damage, and it's passive, making you do even more damage when you're below 60% health, making you one-shot them a lot quicker. Now with Anubis, like I said, you can go to your Vampiric Shroud if you want to. In fact, you do get 34. I keep forgetting that they reduce the lifesteal amount on items, so you can go Vampiric Shroud and you don't overcap. And especially seeing as you're going to be going Chronos Pendant, that could just work well for you if you're also getting your blue buff. But like I said, again, utility from Sands of Time will be very good early game, and I think is a little bit better. But you can always build Vampiric Shroud. Nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, you can upgrade into your Pendulum of the Aegis for your Sands of Time, which is usually what I do. And then for your Vampiric Shroud, you do want to upgrade into a Sacrificial Shroud. Now, you can go Bloodstroke Shroud, as this will be good as well, and it is your safer route here. But when you build this item, this should reach your, actually, it will reach your lifesteal, maximum life steal, so you will be getting more power out of Titan's Fang. Like I said, this is also a very good item to go. It's just preference for me. But Sacrificial Shroud is very good, as your abilities do 15% more damage, but cost you 3% of your maximum health. So if they are building a lot of anti-heal, this is not going to be really good for you, and you want to go the other one, or, you know, think about it twice, because you will be just losing maximum health after using the ability. Make sure you are hitting them with your abilities too, because you will die if you don't do that. But if you are able to get a little bit of your lifesteal back at the very least, then a Vampiric or Sacrificial Shroud is the best one here. And as Anubis, you're one-shotting. So this is what is very good about this this upgraded starter. So you definitely want to go Sacrificial Shroud here if you can. Otherwise, you go Pendulum of Aegis. And with Anubis, you don't really want to sell your starters, as the amount of damage you're doing with this build anyways is going to one-shot them. And there aren't too many other items that will give you that extra oomph for the one-shot potential that he already has. So you just basically want to upgrade your relics, or, you know, get some power pots until you reach level 20. Eventually, if you do, most of the time you won't. But this is your Anubis build. Moving on, we have the Quanger Banger himself. We have Kuang. Now, Kuang is an interesting one, because in Joust, I do believe his damage route is not very good. You do need to go a hybrid / tank route with Kuang for him to be any type of good, seeing as his ult is really what you want to prioritize, whether it's, you know, using it to eat them, of course, and just getting a free execute, or for setup, as it is a very good ult to set up with, which a lot of people don't really like to do. They like to use it for its intended purpose to execute them, but always keep in mind when you're playing Kuang, you can just use it to set them up or get their beats, for example. But like I said, his regular path that you see in Conquest, where he's just straight up damaging and basically one-shotting and just shredding them with his auto attacks, you don't necessarily want to do in Joust, because it isn't his best path. But as Kuang, the path that I like to go down is the very hybrid / tank route. So we're going to go straight up with an axe for obvious reasons. It does do, it has protections, has a little bit of power, and its passive, it gives you just extra damage. The extra damage, and it also restores your health and mana, also going off of your level. From there, you want to go into either, well, every single time you want to play Kuang, you do want to go your Earring, very similar to a lot of tanks. Earring is going to be very good here, so you do go there. And with this build, you're going to want to go into either Gooseberries or Bow, but with the hybrid / tank path, I believe Bow is going to be better for you, although you can go Gooseberries if you would like. Other than that, we're going to go into our Chalice, as we are able to afford it with this path right here. You'll have a little bit gold left over, but you do want to make sure you get what your intended item is going to be, and that is your Gauntlet of Thebes. So after you do that, you're going to have your, let's correctly put this in order, your Warrior's Axe, your Mystical Earring, you're going to have your Chalice, and then after that, you're going to go into your Gauntlet of Thebes, and you're going to be stacking that really quickly, or at least very trying to. From here, we're going to go into a Berserker's Shield. You're going to be a very tanky, but you're going to be attacking really quickly with Kuang. So you're going to go into your Berserker's Shield here. This gives you a little bit of damage mitigation once you are below 60% health, very similar to Asi. You're going to be getting a lot of physical penetration, health, a 25% attack speed, and you get HP 5 on top of the HP 5 that Gauntlet is going to be giving you as well. So you're going to have a lot of HP 5 to help you live, basically. Whenever you get damaged, you walk away, and you should be getting a lot of your health back too. From there, and then your next item, you're going to want to go into Shoguns. Shoguns, very similar to Berserkers, will give you a passive of 30% attack speed. On top of that, you're getting MP5. So at this point, you can sell your Mystical Earring, as this is giving you 15. But a lot of the times, I'd like to just hold this on, seeing as you're not going to be able to fill the slot up yet. So you might as well just keep it there, because you can. Unless you can afford an item, then you might want to sell it to afford that item. But very cheap, 2,200 gold, 2,300 gold. As you can see, this build is very, very cheap. But you're also getting a lot of protections and attack speed. Currently, you can see we're at 141, 117, and now this is before Gauntlet is stacked, so you're going to have a lot more stacks. Not only that, you're going to be helping your team with its passive. Similar to Thebes, you're going to be giving some of your allies a passive protections as well. Now, depending on what team you're going up against, if you're going up against a 2 magical, 1 physical team, you do want to make sure you buy your Shoguns first, as that's going to be more beneficial. Then you buy your Berserkers. And of course, if you're going up against a 2 physical team, 1 magical team, like 2 Warriors and 1 Mage, for example, you do want to get your Berserkers on sooner, as that's going to be your main damage source. But that can be flip-flopped depending on team comps. From here, this is where we start doing a little bit of damage with our Cyclopean Ring. Now, this may be like a question mark, a head scratcher, but this works perfectly and will synergize really well with your kit. Not only are you getting your attack speed and a little bit of magical power to help you with that, but you're also getting 10% cooldown, which I don't know if a lot of you know, but does have 10% cooldown. A very weird stat to put in a ring, but it works perfectly here. On top of the fact, your next basic attack on an enemy will deal an additional equal to 8% of the target's maximum health. Very similar to E-Staff. So you're just taking 8% of their health right away with an auto attack. And if you're playing Kuang, you're using his 2 a lot. So you're going to be using your auto attacks very quickly. As you can see, you're going to have 1.89 attack speed. So you're going to be autoing really quickly onto them. Whether that's on a tank or a backline, you're still stripping 8% of their health. And then its passive is very good as well. Or I'm sorry, the bottom half of the passive, you're going to be reducing the effect of Cyclopean Ring. Instead of every 10 seconds, you're going to be reducing it by 2 seconds for each successful basic attack on enemy gods. And now as Kuang, with a lot of attack speed, you're going to be attacking them really quickly, meaning that the passive of 8% of the target's maximum health for Cyclopean Ring will be coming up very quickly along with that. At this point, you can go ahead and sell your Mystical Earring and go into your last item, Ethereal Staff. And you can probably tell where I'm going with this. Your Warrior's Axe, actually, I'm not meant to keep that there, not just to unbuild it. Yeah. From here, the reason why we go Ethereal Staff is very similar to Cyclopean Ring. Your 3 is an ability-based damage ability. And so you're going to be throwing that out a lot. And with that, you're going to be taking 6% on top of the 8% of your autos from Cyclopean Ring. You're going to be taking 6% maximum health from your damage with your 3 or your 1 or even your ult, for example. So pairing that with Cyclopean Ring, you're doing 14% of their health if you're able to auto them and do an ability-based damage, which you should be able to do as your Kuang. On top of that, you're also getting Warrior's Axe proc. So you're also doing another proc of damage. So this is your basic Kuang build. Now you can go in the last item you do want to go into is your upgraded Warrior's Axe. Now what I like to do is I like to go into Sundering Axe. Now you may be thinking that why would you go Sundering when you can go into your Axe of Animosity, seeing as you do have a lot of health. As you can see, where's your health? You do have almost 3,000 health, and seeing as Axe of Animosity bases it off of its protections, 2% of your maximum health, not protections, your health. Why wouldn't you want to go this? Well, the reason is you can go this, of course. You can always go this if you want to. But without Kuang, Sundering Axe is going to give you that additional 3% plus 1.5% of your protections from items. So you're on top of Let's go ahead and click that down. On top of the Ethereal Staff and Cyclopean Ring, you're going to be getting another percentage damage from Axe, or Warriors, or Sundering Axe, I'm sorry, plus your protection. So depending on how many protections you have, which you should be close to 200 on both, then you will be doing an extra 1.5% of that. So you're going to be doing close to 20% of their health by just either autoing and doing ability damage with Sundering Axe as well. So that's what I prefer more. You can go Axe of Animosity if you would like. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I do like the Sundering Axe more. With Kuang, you don't really want to sell your Warrior's Axe, as I think that the proc from its passive is still really good, and you don't really want to sell that into many other items, as you do want to make sure you get your Sundering Axe online at the end. But of course you can if you want to. But that is your Kuang build. All right, moving into the cringe god herself, we have Aphrodite. Very, very cringe god. She was almost the most dominant god in the beginning of the season when they changed the healing not being able to stack onto your damage, or doesn't have doesn't have damage scaling on its healing. It was just on, now it's on a flat amount based on levels and stuff like that, meaning making Aphrodite more of a tank healer rather than the damage dealer that she was before. Now with that, you can go damage with her. She does do a lot of damage, but specifically as Aphro in Joust, you do want to make sure you either do a hybrid version of that or a tank version, as I think those builds are the best for her. So starting off, we're going to go into a Sands of Time. Sands of Time is going to give you that cooldown as long as the MP5, as well as the MP5, which you're going to be needing as you're just basically kissing one of your teammates and hoping, and just keeping them alive, basically, with your healing and your ult. After that, we're going to go straight into a Mystical Earring, as you're going to be going tanky. So you're going to want that as well. With this, you're able to get your Chalice, but first off, you want to get into your bow for obvious reasons. Chalice is going to be very good for you here as well. So you're going to go into your Chalice, and that is your start. You will have 200 or 100 gold left over. You do want to make sure you keep on to that so you can go into your first item, which is going to be your Gauntlet of Thebes. Now, there's a lot of tanky mages at the beginning of this tier, or at this video, I guess. But obvious reasons, you want to get your protections online. It'll help your teammates, like I said, with the hybrid type of build. From there, you do want to go into an obvious one, a Breastplate of Regrowth. You are healing with Aphrodite. So your 3, whenever you use your 3, is always going to proc Breastplate of Regrowth. On top of that, you're going to get 10% cooldown reduction, making it to where you're 20% right now. Keep in mind, as Aphrodite, depending on what team comp you are, you might be able to get blue buffs. Sometimes you might not be able to. But if you are, you can also think of that as well. But at the very least, you are getting 20% cooldown with this build so far, which is really good. But on top of that, you get a lot of mana, MP5, making your Mystical Earrings and your Breastplate and your Sands of Time, getting you up to that 10, 15, 25, 40 MP5. You're going to have 40 MP5 with that so far. And then on top of that, you are going to go into a Heart Ward Amulet. But I forgot something here. I'm sorry. The passive on Breastplate of Regrowth, whenever you get your healing, like I said earlier, you're going to be getting 20% movement speed and 15 physical power. But for Aphrodite, you're going to be getting 30 magical power for 4 seconds. And as you're healing, you're always healing. So you're always going to have this up. I mean, you're always going to have that 20% movement speed and 30 additional power just because you have it. Now from there, like I said, you're going to go into a Heart Ward Amulet. I'm a little all over the place right now, trying to conquer myself here, trying to go from trying to go from 1 to 0 to 1. That's what I'm trying to say. 0 to 1. But we're going to go Heart Ward Amulet right here. Heart Ward Amulet is a very, very, very good item, especially for how cheap it is. It gives you 45 magical protections and 200 health, and it gives you your teammates MP5 and yourself for MP5. You're going to be getting 30 MP5 extra, as well as you're giving them 15 magical protections, which is very good. But specifically why you're building this is for its upgraded version. Your upgraded version into your glyph, you're never going to go into Amulet of Silence. It's just bad right now. Amulet of the Stronghold. Your Amulet of the Stronghold is what you're going to want to go into. It's one of the best glyphs in the game, as It already has its passive, like I said earlier, but you're also gaining magical protections equal to 15% of your physical protections. So when we do get rid of this, we're going into this. It doesn't actually calculate that, which is kind of funny. But you will be getting a lot of magical protections. Also, the gauntlet is not here. It's not being calculated either. So you are really tanky right now with a little bit of power from Breastplate and a little bit of power from your Sands of Time. It's a good mix between that. You're going to have a lot of protections. And you're going to want to upgrade this very soon, as it's, like I said, it's one of the best clips in the game. But your fourth item here, you're going to go into a Chronos Pendant. This is going to level out your cooldown. You're going to have 40% cooldown right now. You're going to get a little bit of MP5, which doesn't matter at this point, seeing as your MP5 should be maxed out. And then you're really building this for its cooldown. So that's a very good utility item there, and you're getting a little bit of power. Last item, we're going to go into a Rod of Tahuti, which may seem like a very weird one. It does give you percent pen, and it does give you MP5, but at this point, like I said, it doesn't matter. Its passive is really good. But one thing that people may not know, Rod of Tahuti, me and my friend went into a jungle practice, and we did build Rod of Tahuti, and we found that Rod of Tahuti actually increases the amount of healing you do. I don't know why it does, but whenever we tried to test it, we were going back and forth. We're like, wait, why the hell are we getting increased healing? We got rid of Rod of Tahuti and it went down. We only built Rod of Tahuti and we realized that you do get a little bit more healing. So on top of the percent pen and damage that you're going to be getting towards the end of the build with Aphrodite, which is good, it is also there to help you with your healing, as it does more healing as well. So that is one cool niche that this Rod of Tahuti has. Now for your last item, you do want to go into your alternate timeline, not only to not overcap your CDR to min-max, but in Aphrodite that doesn't die already and then has even more protections and has a second life is the most cringe thing in the world. So here is your last item. You don't really want to sell it. You sell your last item as a tank Afro. It doesn't really do all that much for you. But if you do, you can go into things something like as ethereal staff or maybe another tank item, something like that. But really, you do want to wait till late game because the alternate timeline is the ultimate starter for Aphrodite. And here is your cringe Aphrodite build. And now we have my favorite god. As you can see, I have almost 5,000 worshippers on her. You do one of the best gods in the game right now. If you're not playing her, then you should probably get good with her because she is probably one of the best mages in the game right now, in Joust specifically. Not a lot of people play her. Not a lot of people ban her either, which is a sort of like a dark horse type of god here. So if you do want to get good at her, I highly recommend it. She's one of the best in the game. She still hasn't gotten a significant nerf, so all of her abilities chunk disgustingly. But now that we said that, I am a Baba Yaga main, so there are two build paths that I like to go. The main one that you're really going to be doing with Baba Yaga, you're going to go into a conduit gem. Like I said, you can go into Sands of Time if you want, but this is the build path I'm going to show you today. You're obviously going to go in your bow, and then you're going to go first item, your Chronos Pendant. I'm sorry, you go into your first Chronos Pendant. Now, I tried doing this build. Chronos Pendant on Baba Yaga with Conduit Gem seems very weird, but with Baba Yaga having so much potential with her 2, seeing as you can put your 2 inside of your inventory. If you don't know, you can basically have two of your second abilities. So you're throwing out 2 bombs right at once. So your burst potential is crazy. So with your cooldowns on top of that, you're going to have that up a lot of the time. Now, we didn't even finish our start, but you do have 550 gold plus 700, so it is your 1250. So you're going to be able to get 3 magical pots, I believe. Yeah, you're going to be able to get 5 pots, but for me, the one thing that I like to do with Baba Yaga is I like to go 5 multi-pots. That is your maximum that you can go here, as 5 multi-pots is going to give you some mana and some health. But specifically why I do this is because if you use your 2, you still have, if you use 2 potions, your health potions and multi potions, for example, you don't have any more slots for you 2, meaning that early game, like at the beginning of the game, you're not going to have as much pressure, you're not going to be able to have as much damage. So you do want to make sure you have 5 potions there, and so you can have your second slot open for your 2 to go into. So you go your first item, Chronos, and then you're going to go into your Chronos pendant. Like I said earlier, the damage you're going to be doing is crazy with your conduit gem mixed with the amount of cooldowns you have. MP5 shouldn't be a problem either. But from there, you're going to want to go into a Charon's coin. Always going to want to go into your Charon's coin. Now, the big determining factor between when to go Charon's coin versus Obshard is whether or not you can stack Charon's coin a lot easier. With the recent buff to Obshard, adding an extra 10% in its passive, it's made it to where Charon's coin has been your always go-to option for percent pen. Now it's more of your Obshard. But with Baba Yaga's passive, if you don't know, you just basically get passive stacks when your cabin is moving. So with that, you will be able to stack your Charons really, really well, and can stack really well, seeing as it does give you in its passive more HP 5, as well as I believe you get movement, right? You do get movement speed, and it stacks up to 4 times. So you will be able to get that a lot. So if you're not getting Charon's coin, you're missing out on a lot of potential utility with that. But from there, I'm pretty sure a lot of you already know from the SPL, you do want to go into your prophetic cloak. And I do want to say, I really do want to say this, I thought of this way before this was meta. Back when prophetic cloak first came out, I was like, wait, if prophetic cloak stacks with Baba Yaga's passive, then prophetic cloak would actually be disgusting, as the main thing that you want to do, the main thing you want to talk about or think about with prophetic is how likely you can get those stacks online, which is always the difference between that and Gauntlet of Thebes, as prophetic is a lot harder to get stacked compared to your Gauntlet. And before that, I would go Gauntlet before prophetic cloak ever was a thing. But with prophetic, and seeing as it does stack with your passive, prophetic cloak has become in the meta for Baba Yaga, and I'd like to say that I thought of it way before it was meta. Not that anyone really fucking cares, but you go into your prophetic cloak here. Like I said, it stacks with your passive, meaning that you're going to get a lot of protections. You're going to get cooldown with it too, so you're going to have 30% cooldown. And it's just a better version of Gauntlet. So you obviously want to go that. Fifth item, very similar to a lot of the other damage mages, you want to go into your Soul Reaver. After that, same thing, go into your Rod of Tahuti. And with Baba Yaga, you do want to upgrade into your Calamitous, seeing as you're going to be one of those guys that are going to be throwing out abilities all the time. So the Calamitous will be able to burst them down even more. That is your first Baba Yaga build. If you do want to upgrade into an upgraded Conduit Gem, you can. You do want to go into Gem of Focus for obvious reasons, like I said earlier. But if you don't feel like upgrading your starter item, Baba is a god that you can sell your starter for something like an Ethereal Staff, like we said earlier. So you can go sell that for Ethereal Staff. Otherwise, you go Gem of Focus, and that is your first Baba build. Now, the other build that I do like to go instead involves the Book of Thoth build. It's not as good as it once was. It's definitely not, because it used to be the go-to build. But with Baba being able to stack things very easily, she is an outlier in terms of that. So with this build, you're going to go Sands of Time, because you're going to be going into your first book. You're going to go into your first spell book. So you are only going to have 1350 gold. You're going to go into your Bountiful Bow, 1350 gold. So you're going to have 150. But like I said, you do just want to go into 3 multi-potions. So you have room for your second 2. After that, we're going to go straight into our Book of Thoth. You're able to stack Book of Thoth with your passive, so you're going to be able to stack this really, really soon, which means you're going to get a lot of things from this. You're going to be getting mana, more damage. On top of that, you are going to get Flat Pen on this as well, as they added that for some reason. And then, of course, if you guys don't know, she is an abuser of Tablet of Destinies. Now, the bad thing about her is that his passive does not stack with Tablet of Destinies, so you will need to stack this up regularly when you just have to successfully damage with an ability. One thing about Baba Yaga, though, is that you're able to throw out your abilities very quickly, as your cooldowns are relatively short. So you are going to be able to stack this relatively easily. And now this build really is only good in Conquest, because Tablet of Destinies takes so long to get online. But with Baba, you're able to get that on significantly quicker, seeing as you are going to be throwing out your abilities frequently. Now, this build is also only really potent for those enemy team comps that you're going up against where they both have a double tank. So if you are going up against an oppressive double tank god, or if they're building damage mitigation, or you think they might, then this would be a very good counter to that as well, as this does do true damage. And I believe that's, yeah. So you do want to go Tablet of Destinies if you're going up against a double tank team. Otherwise, you want to preface the other one. But similar to the other build, where the last 3 items are going to be very similar, the only options here, or the only differences here, were the first 3 items. You're going to go into your Prophetic Cloak, Soul Reaver, and you're going to be going into your Rod of Tahuti. Did I say? Okay, with Tablet of Destinies, you can't... that may have been confusing to you. If they do damage mitigation, this isn't going to affect anything, I believe. With your true damage, this does just do damage without the... It just goes past protections, but I do believe damage mitigation, that doesn't have any effect on Tablet of Destinies. So that was one of the main reasons why they reduced the damage mitigation cap. If that hopefully didn't confuse you at all. If you do, just ask me in the comments below, or just someone in the comments make it more clear, because I do need to get on with this. Your last item for your upgraded version of Sands of Time is going to be, either or. But preferably, you do want to get Pendulum of the Aegis, as this will round out your build with maximum CDR, or not maximum, but very close to maximum. You'll get 30%. But of course, you can still go into that other one. Why am I thinking of it? Alternate Timeline. You can go into Alternate Timeline, as it does give you protections and an extra life too, just depending on what you want. Specifically, I would go Pendulum of the Aegis. But obviously, if you don't get to level 20, you just sell this and get your Ethereal Staff, and that is your... Oops. Let me put this in order. But that is your second Baba Yaga build. All right, we have the cringe god himself. We do have Baron. I love you, hot sauce, but... I'm doing something. Let's see. Baron. There are 2 builds that you can go with Baron. One of them being a hybrid / tank version of very similar to Kuang or Aphrodite, as he does heal and he's very oppressive like that as well. He does have very good CC in his kit with his ult and his 3, and does have a heal with his 2. But first off, we're going to go with the first build, and we're going to go into a Conduit Gem into Chronos. Chronos is going to help you be able to get all of those cooldowns on your abilities. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Chronos. This is going to be your start. Your first item, Chronos. With this, you're going to have your bow, and then you're going to have 1250 gold. So you do want to go into 3 health pots. And then you do want to go into either multi-pots or mana pots. And that is your start so far. From there, you do want to upgrade into your Chronos Pendant. And this build will obviously heavily depend on what team comp you're going up against. You can go double flat pen with Spear of Desolation and Divine Ruin if you're going up against that. I'm not going to do that. Or if you're going up against a very hard tank team, you can go into your Ob Shard. But generally speaking, let's just do a very general build. So we're going to go Spear of Desolation here, or a Divine Ruin. I guess I am going to do it. I just lied to myself. Divine Ruin here. And then we're going to go ahead and get your Ob Shard. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, Ob Shard, Obsidian Shard, there we go. Those are your 3 items that you're going to be thinking about when building. So obviously you do have your Chronos Pendant. Depending on whether or not you have a squishy team, you're going up against a squishy team, you go Spear Desolation, Divine Rune. Or if they are a tank team, then you would go into your Spear Desolation and Ob Shard. And maybe if they're healing, then instead of a Spirit Desolation, you would go Divine. So always keep that in mind. These are your 3 items that you're going to be thinking about in terms of your different team comps. But of course, you can always just do the regular Spirit Desolation Ob Shard build in general, and it will still be very good, obviously, with the caveat of healing. But with that, let's just do the regular Ob Shard build. From there, we're going to go into our last 2 items, which is very obvious. We're going to go into Soul Reaver, and then we're going to go into Rod of Tahuti. And that will round out your build very nicely. Finally, for your upgraded starter, you're definitely going to go Gem of Isolation. Gem of Focus, if you are able to upgrade it. Otherwise, you're going to go into your Ethereal Staff. And sell it for that. And that is your damage Baron build. All right, next up we have our hybrid slash tank build. Shout out to my friend, Mr. Dr. Professor Michael, for giving me this build because he does play a lot of tank baron. So this is my build that I'm getting from him, as this is the build path that he likes to go. So bear with me. I am looking at the build he gives me. So first off, you want to go into your axe. Axe is going to be really good, seeing as all the other starters are gone. Your sentry, or I'm sorry, your sentinels, your heroism, stuff like that is gone. So you're going to want to go into your warrior's axe. After that, your first item is going to be your mystical earrings. Mystical earrings will give you that cooldown, seeing as you're going to be going that tanky route, which will allow you to first of all go bow, but then go into your health chalice as well. You're gonna have a little bit of gold left over, but you do want to go into your first item, which is going to be your Gauntlet of Thieves. Your first item, Gauntlet of Thieves. Now you can, I'm sorry, I meant to say Gauntlet of Thieves. Now you can build this and then go into your Chronos pendant. Let me put this down before I explain the difference. Now you can go into Gauntlet first and get that stacked first, and then go into your Conduit for your cooldowns, MP5 and stuff like that, or you can go straight into your Chronos into Gauntlet. Just keep in mind that if you are going to go this route, you're going to be squishy earlier into the game, which is why I think that Gauntlet is a little bit better for that purpose. Get that stacked up online really quickly so that you are able to get your Chronos pendant while being tanky. Now from here, this is going to be your difference maker in terms of your item path. Now we said before that we can go your Spear of Desolation. This part's going to be very similar to how you build a lot of your other gods, where you're thinking about these three items. So depending on what you're going up against, if you're going up against a double tank, double squishy team, then you're want to go Spear of Desolation. If you're going up against a tank team, then you're going to want to go into your Ob Shard. If they are doing, they have a lot of healing, then of course you're going to want to go into your Divine. If they have a lot of healing and they are tanky, then you would go into your Ob Shard too, and that's how your build path would look so far. But we're going to go with a regular build and pretend that it is a squishy team that we're going to go up against, seeing that as how you see a lot. Otherwise, you're going to go into your Ob Shard, of course. But let's go with Spear of Desolation for the purposes of this video. Spear of Desolation, and then you're going to go into your Ethereal Staff. Now, Ethereal Staff is going to be built on a little bit sooner, seeing as I think Ethereal Staff is a little bit better on Baron than Soul Reaver will be. So you're going to go into your Ethereal Staff. Last item, we're going to go into a Rod of Tahuti. You're going to go into your Rod of Tahuti, and that should round out your build. But as a tank Baron, you don't really want to sell your Warrior's Axe. You do want to make sure you have that online because its effects are very good as a start. So it all means that you don't really want to sell this. So your Sundering Axe will be what you want to go into last item. And that is your hybrid slash tank Baron build. And now we have Chang'e, one of the mages that you can kind of one-shot with, and actually one-shot with. Now, brief explanation with her, she is not very good against your tank team comp. She's okay against it, but is not one of the best for that. Primarily, what you want to use Chang'e for is the double squish in the back team comp, where you can basically one-shot them and get them out of the fight. That's her main purpose, as her abilities are set that way. You ult 3, 1, and they should be basically dead, if not dead already, late game. So with that in mind, we're going to go straight into a Conduit Gem. And then we're going to go first item, Chronos Pendant. First item, Chronos Pendant here. You're going to have 1250 gold. After you get your bow, you're going to want to go into 3 pots. And then preferably 2 mana pots with her. From there, we're going to go into our Chronos Pendant, and a very similar build with her. We're going to go into either our Divine, our Spear of Desolation, and our Ob Shard. And depending, like I said, usually you're going to want to build this against a double squishy team that they have. So a lot of the time you are just going to go your Divine Spear of Desolation. But if somehow you pick Chang'e in a tank team, you definitely want to prioritize going into your Ob Shard, Spirit Desolation Ob Shard, or if they have healing, your Divine into your Ob Shard. But for the sake of this build, we're going to pretend like we're going up against a squishy team because that's what you normally do with Chang'e. Last item is going to be our Soul Reaver, and then finally our Rod of Tahuti. And as you can see, this is sort of the basic, similar, just general build path you do want to go with Chang'e. As well, you upgrade your starter into either Gem of Focus, or you sell it for your ethereal staff towards the end. That is your basic Chang'e build. However, there is one build path that I prefer more, and this one is geared towards actually one-shotting. A lot easier with that than the other build. So with this build, my preferred build, actually, we're going to go straight into a Sands of Time this time. Then we're going to go into a Spear of Desolation. First item, Spear of Desolation. With this build, you are only going to have 150 gold. So we're going to go into 2 health potions and one mana potion. Of course, you're going to get your bow, because without bow on her, there's really no other recipe that you want to go. From there, we're going to upgrade it into a Spear of Desolation. We're going to do the same flat pen, double flat pen route. So we're going to go Sands of Time into Spear of Desolation. Of course, I keep forgetting that you do want to get your Chalice after you buy your Spear of Desolation, for example. Then you go into your Divine Rune. After this, we're going to go into a Staff of Mirrodin, and I will explain all of it once I am finished with the build. You go into Staff of Mirrodin, Spear of the Magus, and then your last item will be Rod of Tahuti. Now, with this build, you are getting a lot, and I mean a lot. You can even go against, you can use this against a regular team as well. I'm sorry, a tank team as well. So as you can see, you are getting basically max percent pen. You're getting 30 magical penetration. But what really makes this good is your Spirit Desolation Divine combo. You're getting 30 flat pen, making it to where you're damaging your squishies a lot easier, on top of your Staff of Mirrodin, meaning that once you ult, your damage is increased by 20% when you use your 3-in-1. And when you ult 3-1, you're basically getting off as soon as you ult. So you're getting that 20% very easily. On top of that, Spirit of the Magus increases damage taken to them by 5%. So once you ult, they take more damage. And then on top of that, with Rod of Tahuti's passive abilities, gain 15% additional magical power against targets below 60% health. So at this point, with your ult 3, you're basically having their health is definitely below 60% health, meaning that you're also getting a 15% additional magical power on top of what her passive, or her 3 does now, I believe. Or no, wait, is it her ult or is it her passive? But essentially her passive or something. Wait, which one is it? I'm actually losing my mind. Is it her ult? Not her ult. It must be her passive then. Yeah, it is her passive. I'm an idiot. It's causing them. So with your passive, she gains 20% movement speed with no backpedal penalty. But you're also allowing it to cause them to take 5% extra damage from her abilities within the next 4 seconds, stacking 3 times. So this should also work well too. You're not going to get that online as much as this is, but this is definitely your one-shot build with her. You can obviously go into a Pendulum of the Aegis to max out or get 30% cooldown. You'll be getting your max cooldown. I'm sorry, because Staff of Mirrodin gives you 10, 10, and 10, so this will get you your max. If not, you can always go into your Ethereal Staff. If you want to sell that and get your Ethereal Staff. Otherwise, you go into Pendulum of the Aegis and do that. And this is your one-shot other build with Chang'e that I prefer more against those squishy characters. And now we have our Chronos build. Unlike what a lot of people do, he doesn't need to go that much attack speed. So rings in his build are not going to be the greatest for him. similar to Soul, you don't want to build a lot of rings because the damage that they do is really good to begin with. So the rings don't really do all that much for him. So this build is going to be more of a attack-based or a damage-based build. So from there, we're going to go straight into a Spear of Desolation. You can go Chronos on him if you want, as he is Chronos, but I think you are not getting the max value as you should with going into Chronos. You're going to go into your bow, and then, of course, your last item, or your consumables, you only have 250, meaning that you're going to be able to only get 3 pots. You're going to finish your Spear of Desolation, and then go into your Divine Ruin, and then that is if you're going up against a squishy team comp. Otherwise, if you are not, you're obviously going to have that Ob Shard just in case you're going up against double frontline with a lot of protections. So you're going to do that instead. Of course, you are either going to, let's get rid of all of that. I'm just going to explain it again just because I can. If you're going up against your double squishy, you're going to build these two. If not, you're going to go into your Spear of Desolation and you're going up against double tank team. You're going to buy your Ob Shard. If they do have a lot of healing, then of course you're going to instead go to Spear of Desolation. You're going to go Divine into Ob Shard, and that's how you will do that. With this build, we're going to go ahead and just do that, the regular stuff. Then we're going to go into a Polynomicon. We're going to go into a Polynomicon. After that, we're going to go into a Spear of the Magus. And then last item, Rod of Tahuti. So this build is a little bit different than a lot of the regular mages that you will see. But specifically with Poly, you're able to use your 3, you're able to auto, or if you're able to use your 1, then you're able to auto. Otherwise, a lot of the time, you're able to get an auto off after your abilities, especially your 3. So Polynomicon is there to do an extra amount of damage. Spear of the Magus will give you a little bit of lifesteal that you're also getting with Poly, so that works well too. And then, of course, your Rod of Tahuti is your damage. But like I said earlier, if you are going up against a tank team, you can obviously go into your Ob Shard instead of your Divine Ruin. You can get your Poly, your Spear of the Magus, and you will get maximum percent pen plus Ob Shard passive, so that is very good to go. Like I said, last item that you do want to think about is your Pendulum of the Aegis. This will definitely get you 30% cooldown, so you'll definitely have that cooldown. But you can also look at an alternate timeline as well, seeing as Chronos basically does have an alternate timeline in his ult. So if you're able to ult, get all your health back, and then die again, and then use your ultimate timeline, that'll be the ultimate cringe type of build. So that is that. And then, of course, if you want to sell your Sands of Time, you obviously have your Ethereal Staff there too. Just think about whenever you want to sell your starter item, Ethereal Staff is always there for you, and that is your Chronos Pendant. Or, I'm sorry, that is your Chronos build. Alright, about halfway there with Discordia. Discordia is going to be a quick one, as she is just a very average mage in terms of the build path you go. She is a very good mage to play if you're able to play her really well. But you do just go a regular build path. So you do go into Conduit, into your first tier of Chronos Pendant. You are going to have, you're going to have not Chronos right there yet. You're going to go into your tier 1 Chronos. You are going to have 1250 gold, meaning that you are going to, first of all, go get your bow. And then you're going to get your 3 healing pots and your 2 mana pots. And that'll be your start for her. Obviously, we're going to go into Chronos Pendant. Then we're going to go into Spear of Desolation. Here is your Dilemma, very similar to a lot of your hunters. I'm not able to spell. Divine into Ob Shard. All right, there we go. So this is your Dilemma. Obviously going to go into a Chronos Pendant. And then you're going to go either into your Spear of Desolation Divine if you're going up against squishies. Otherwise, you're going to go into Spear of Desolation Ob Shard for your double tank team comp. Or you're just going to go into a Divine into Ob Shard if they do have healing. I'm going to say this again. I've already said it before. But again, in any type of build, you can go just Spear of Desolation into Ob Shard and then the rest of your items, and you should be good against any team comp. But if you do want that extra oomph against a double backline team, I do like going into Divine. But of course, you can always just do the regular Spear of Desolation or Divine into Ob Shard, and that would be good to go as well. But we're going to go and pretend like we're going up against a squishy team. And next item, we're going to go into Soul Reaver. The last two items for most of these Mage Burst builds are always going to be the same, as these items are still very, very good. So that is your Discordia build. And then, of course, can't forget your Gem of Focus if you do, or if you are able to get that upgraded. Otherwise, very similar to every other build, you're going to go into your Ethereal Staff for your starter. And that is your really only Discordia build. And now we have the weird one. We have Eset. So there are two sets of builds that you can go with her. One is obviously your damage build because she is a mage, but the other one is a hybrid / tank version of her. If you've seen in the SPL or you've just seen in Conquest, she is able to go support as her abilities are conducive for that. Her 3 gives your allies shields. Your ult is able to heal them. You have a very good stun in your Spirit Ball, and your passive does give you HP5 and MP5. So she is a decent support. Now in Joust, she's not as good as she is in Conquest for that support role. So she is sort of a hybrid built mage. But first, we're just going to go into the regular damage build. We're going to go build Sands of Time on her. I think this is better than Conduit, seeing as she does use a lot of mana, and on top of that, a lot of the abilities that she does, a Conduit Gem will not be really that valuable. But we do go into Chronos Pendant. Sands of Time into a Chronos Pendant is still very good, but of course, we want to make sure we don't build Chronos Pendant. We get tier 1 Chronos Pendant for the start. You're going to go into Bow, and then you do have, let me check, yeah, you do have 1250 gold, meaning you're able to get 3 health pots and 2 multi-pots or mana pots. It doesn't really matter. Preference. Now we're going to go into your Chronos Pendant. And then from here, you have your same dilemma. You have your Spear of Desolation, your Divine, the good old boring stuff at this point, and your Ob Shard. I'm going to reiterate this one last time. Or not one last time. I'm going to keep reiterating this. I'm sorry. Spirit Desolation, Divine. You're going to be going against your squishies. Divine into your Ob Shard if you're going up against tanks and their healing. Otherwise, you're going to go Spear into Ob Shard. With that, we're going to pretend like we're going up against squishies. Then we're going to go into the last 2 items. Soul Reaver and Rod of Tahuti. Those will be your last 2 items. Did I miss something? I forgot to hit Sands of Time. You're gonna want to do that. With her, you do want to go. You do want to go into your Pendulum of the Aegis instead of the Oath of the Timeline. If not, always there. It will always be their Ethereal Staff, and that is your damage Eset build. But there is one other build that I like to highlight for her that is very good and is a proxy for what she can do, as this is another build path for her. She can go hybrid. So similar to last path for Eset, you do want to go into Sands of Time, but instead you do want to go into a Mystical Earring instead, seeing as this will be your hybrid build. With this, you can get your Chalice, so you're able to get your Chalice online earlier. Make sure to get your Chalices. I kept forgetting to put that there, but make sure to get your Chalice. So your Sands of Time, Mystical Earring, and your Chalice, that'll be your start. From there, you're going to want to go into your Gauntlet of Thebes. And then after that, you're going to go into your Chronos Pendant. Very similar to what I said about Baron. You can interchange these two. It just depends on what you want more of. If you want more damage in the beginning, you can go Chronos, but you are going to be very squishy, which is why I like going Gauntlet, getting that stack first, and then getting your Chronos Pendant. From there, this next item will depend. It's a very similar path to what we were talking about with your Dilemma in terms of your Spear of Desolation, Divine, and Ob Shard path. The difference is that you're only going to be able to buy one of these. Instead of buying a combination of these, you're only going to be able to buy one with this build, and in order to fit everything in this build. Like I said, this is a general proxy build for what she can go, but this build does work well too. So you're going to go into you already have your Sands of Time, Gauntlet, Chronos. From here, if they have healing, then you definitely always want to go Divine, even if it is a 2-tank team comp. You definitely want to go Divine. If they don't have anything and they do have squishy backline, Spirit Desolation will be good there for you. If they do have a tank team comp, then you do want to go Ob Shard. Otherwise, we're going to pretend like we're going up against a regular team comp without any type of specific things to counter. We're going to go into Soul Reaver, and then last item, Rod of Tahuti. So very similar path. Difference is that you're going to be a little bit more tankier, not one-shottable, but you're still able to burst out a lot of damage. Of course, for your Rod of Tahuti, you're going to sell this if you haven't already sold it before, and that is your Eset build. If you want to upgrade into a starter, of course, you're still going to get your Pendulum of the Ages. Other than that, your Ethereal Staff is still going to be there. Nothing really changes here. And that is your last item. And with that, that is your Eset builds. All right, next up on the chopping block, we have Freya, a very unique god that you want to build her with. She is not a regular mage. She is an ADC mage. So that there's only really one build path you want to go with her. So this one will be unique compared to the others. With her, you do want to go into Conduit Gem. The damage that she does against damage and creeps with Conduit Gem is really, really good. Conduit Gem is very, very good. Otherwise, you can go into an arrow. Oops, capitalized. You can go into your Gilded Arrow if you want, but I do think that in Joust, Conduit Gem is going to be your go-to. From there, you're going to want to go into your Gooseberries. Of course, she's an auto attack based god. And then you're going to want to go into a first item, Telekind's Ring. Not the entire thing, sorry. Telekind's, you're going to get first item, Telekind's. Now with this, you're building it and you're going to have 1,300 gold. So you're only going to have 200 gold left over, which means you're going to buy 2 health pots and 2 mana pots. From there, we're going to upgrade into our first item, which is your Telekind's Ring. Like I said, she's an auto-attack-based god. This does give you a lot of magical lifesteal, or a decent amount of magical lifesteal, a little bit of magical power, and a lot of attack speed. So you're going to want to build this. Your passive does give you bonus damage to any basic attack you hit, which is very nice as well. So you're doing extra damage with your autos as well. From there, Freya is one of the only gods that you build this item on, and that is Hastened Ring, seeing as her build is very auto-centric, meaning that all of your abilities are only going to be doing damage with autos besides your ult, if you want to count that. So her main kit is that. So if you do, if you're going to play her, you're going to want to make sure that you do have Hastened Ring to chase them down, very similar to like a Bakasura with Hastened Katana. So you do want that, as it also gives you a lot of attack speed, and it gives you a little bit of movement speed. From there, you definitely want to go into a Typhon's Fang. Typhon's Fang will definitely be very good. You're getting a little bit of magical lifesteal with your Telekind's Ring, which will actually help you do more healing, and it will increase your power. But specifically, this is going to be your proxy for your magical penetration, as this does give you 20%. So this will help you shred tanks as well. And then similar to Soul Reaver, we're going to go into our Cyclopean Ring for Freya. Now, a lot of people don't like this item, but I still think it is a very, very good item. They've buffed it a little bit. And with Freya, one thing that you don't get a lot of is cooldown. So Cyclopean Ring can help you with that extra 10%. Now, it's not a lot, but with your mana buff, you should be able to have 20% on Freya, and that is just enough to have a lot of your cooldowns back up as soon as you get your Cyclopean Ring online. It's very similar to Soul Reaver in that slot. It's going to be your 5th slot, and it does do similar to Ethereal Staff / Soul Reaver, as it does steal 8% of maximum health. And then finally, your Rod of Tahuti to give you that extra damage at the end, plus the percent pen that it gives you, making it close to max. You're just shredding with your autos. You do have about 2% attack speed, or I'm sorry, 2 attack speed, and you're just basically doing what Freya does and walks them down and kills them and does whatever the hell she wants. Finally, you don't really want to sell your conduit gem, but you can if you want to. You can sell this into a lot of things, but the one thing that I really do like getting on her instead is if you do want to sell it, you do sell it for your demonic grip, as this will give you more attack speed and will also help you kill those tanks with magical protection. Shred basically by 10% up to 3 stacks, meaning that you're definitely going to get close to 30% extra magical penetration, and it does stack as well. As this is like I said earlier, penetration, while this is magical protection reduction. So if you do want to sell your conduit, you go into demonic grip. Otherwise, if you do ever get into your late game build, you can definitely go into your gem of focus, as this does stack well with her too. That is your general Freya build. All right, we have the man himself. We have Hades. Hades is a very convoluted one, as he can go a variety of items. He can go hybrid, he can go tank, as he was a guardian at one point, I believe. So you definitely can go damage, hybrid, or tank. So I'm going to give you 2 options in terms of builds. Now this is going to be a generalized build. He can definitely go a lot of items, so do keep that in mind. But first, we're going to go into one of the very basic ones. We're going to go into Vampiric Shroud, similar to Anubis, but the difference between him and Anubis is I think Hades does get more out of Vampiric Shroud. Next up, we're going to go into our first item, Tier 1 Bancroft's Talon. Now, with this build so far, let's go ahead and just get our bow first before I talk about it. With this build, you are getting about 1,200. So you're, 650, that will be 1,200 gold. So you are able to get your chalice. If I can spell, you're able to get your chalice with this build, and you're able to have your min-max your start. So that is another thing that is very cool about this build too, at least in the start. From that, we're going to go into our Bancroft's Talon, obviously build that first. Then we're going to go into our Divine Ruin, or this is just your proxy for this or Spear of Desolation, as Spear of Desolation works here as well, but Divine is here just for that anti-heal that they might have. Otherwise, you can just go straight into a Spear of Desolation, either or. You don't really want to buy both of these, as there are a lot of other items you can go instead. So Spear of Desolation if they're not, otherwise go into Divine Ruin. Then we're going to go into our Typhon's Fang. The reason why we don't go Ob Shard is because this is a better version of that for Hades. With Hades, you're getting a lot of healing. You already have 26% magical lifesteal, meaning that you're able to get a lot of benefit, like I explained with Anubis. So you're going to get your Typhon's Fang, you're going to get your max magical penetration. You have 20% right now. And then we're going to go into our Spear of the Magus. Spear of the Magus also gives you more lifesteal, percent pen, and has its passive that does even more damage to those targets, basically reducing their damage that they get increased by 5%. And then finally, you guessed it, Rod of Tahuti. Rod of Tahuti is just one of those items you're going to see in almost every single build. Rod of Tahuti is there to level out your magical penetration, as now you have 40, but also give you even more with its passive damage and MP5 that it gives. Otherwise, this is just your basic Hades build. It covers all your bases with percent penetration, a little bit of flat pen, and you have a lot of healing as you are about to reach the cap. One thing with him though, you can obviously go into your upgraded versions. You can go into your Sacrificial Shroud, or you can go into your other one. I don't know the names by heart. Yeah, Blood-Soaked Shroud, that's what it was. Preferably you want to go into your Blood-Soaked Shroud, as the likelihood of them not buying anti-heal is slim. You're going to max out your magical lifesteal, and its passive won't kill you like Sacrificial Shroud will. But if they end up not building a lot of anti-heal, then Sacrificial Shroud is there for you, as you can definitely fucking blow up people with this damage build. With him, you don't really want to sell any of your starters, as Vampiric Shroud is there for your extra lifesteal and extra stats that it gives you. So that is your Hades build. All right, next up on the next Hades build, I know I sound like I closed out on that part, but no, we're going to go into the hybrid version of Hades. Now, of course, this is going to be a proxy, and this is going to be very similar to the Eset / Baron. type of build, as he can go a lot. This one is just your standard hybrid build. We're going to go into our tier 1 Bancrofts first. With this, you are still able to buy your Chalice, as this costs 650. And this will be 1200 gold. So we're going to go into our bow, and then we're going to go straight into our Chalice. Very great starts with him. This is how you min-max all of your starts with that. Next up, we're going to go straight into our Bancrofts, of course. From here, we're going to go straight into our Gauntlet. Now, I do prefer Gauntlet of Thebes after Bancrofts. You are going to be a little squishier in the beginning of it, but I do like having that extra passive from Bancrofts and the extra power right away to cause a little bit of pressure on your team, opposed to the Gauntlet, as you're not going to have as much. And so you do want to build your Gauntlet. I prefer afterwards. You can obviously flip-flop, but you are clearing the wave as Hades a lot, so you do maybe just want to build the second item. From there, we're going to go into our very standard similar build path we did before. We're going to go into your Typhons, as this will give you percent penetration. And then we're going to go into our Spear of the Magus. And then we're going to go into our Rod of Tahuti. Now, I could have just added the Gauntlet in the first build and just switched it out, but we're here anyways, so might as well just finish it out. Can I please spell this? Yes. We're going to go into... You don't want to go into Sacrificial Shroud. You're definitely going to want to go into Blood-Soaked Shroud, as you're not going to have a lot of healing. You're going to have a lot of protections, or a decent amount. And then you're going to want to... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Not that. We're going to go into our upgraded Warrior's Axe. God. We're going to go into our Sundering Axe. Now, I meant to say you can go into your Shroud, as there are a lot of options here, but this is just your proxy for a hybrid build. So you're going to want to go into your upgraded Sundering. If you do want to sell this, you can, but I would prefer you wouldn't, because Warrior's Axe is still one of those items you don't really want to sell, as there are a lot of items for Hades, but the items that you would be getting rid of for Warrior's Axe, in my opinion, isn't all that worth. So this is going to be your other Hades build. All right, now we have the Burst God himself. We have Hebo. With Hebo, he obviously is bursty. He's very, very squishy. He's basically the ultimate glass cannon, if you can ever call one, in Smite. Hebo is definitely that. So first, we're going to go into Sands of Time. He does have a lot of cooldown in his one, but against Conduit Gem, I don't think is as valuable, as Sands of Time gives you that also MP5, seeing as he runs out of MP5 a lot, seeing as he uses abilities quite frequently, and the 10% cooldown is nice as well. With him, you don't really want to build Chronos Pendant, so we're going to go straight into Spear of Desolation. Like I said earlier, his cooldowns are really quick, especially in his one, so you don't need that much cooldown. And the builds that you're going to be building him with are going to be relatively, or they're going to have a decent amount of cooldown. So from there, you're going to have 1350 gold spent. We're going to go into your bow, obviously. So you're only going to be able to buy 2 pots with this one, and you're only going to be able to buy 1. Usually it's going to be mana pot, seeing as he runs out of mana quickly. From there, we're going to go into a Spear of Desolation. Now, preferably when you play Hebo, you want to use him against a double squish team, as he's not the worst against tanks, but in Joust against a 3v3, if there's double tanks, they're probably going to do whatever the hell they want to you, seeing as you don't have a lot of getaway abilities, and they can tank a few shots from you and CC you and just basically clap you up when you want to, seeing as you're very squishy god. So you do want to make sure you preface picking Hebo against a double squish team, preferably. So you're going to go into your Spear of Desolation a majority of the time. If they do have healing, then you're obviously going to do your same dilemma that you have. Divine Ruin, and then your Ob Shard, obviously. There's your Ob Shard. So you're going to want to go into your Spear of Desolation into a Divine Ruin if you're going up against squishies. If not, then you're going to want to go Spear of Desolation into Ob Shard if you're going up against tanks, even though you don't really want to. Otherwise, if they do have healing, then you're going to want to go into your Divine into Ob Shard. But preferably, we're going to pretend like we're going against a 2 squishy team. Ob Shard is there just in case. And speaking of percent pen, Staff of Mirrodin is there anyways to help you with that percent pen. But specifically why we buy Staff of Mirrodin is for his ult potential. His ult does a crazy amount of damage against those squishy guys. So on top of that, we're going to be adding a passive where you get increased power after you ult, and you do even more damage with your 3-1 combo, which means you should be able to one-shot them anyways. So that is why your Staff of Mirrodin there. The cooldown is there too, as well as you get 30%. And even if you don't build Spirit Desolation and you go into Divine Obshard, Mirrodin, you're going to have 20% plus your blue buff. So you should have enough cooldown, which is why you don't build your Chronos. But this is your build so far. Then we're going to go into our Soul Reaver. Oops, I meant to not build Obshard. There's your build so far. Then you want to go into Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver is just there for your extra damage. And then last but not least, you're going into Rod of Tahuti just for its extra damage. You're going to be one-shotting with this build against squishies. And even against tanks, you should be able to do really well. Now, if you do go the Obshard route for some reason, and you're going up against tanks, you are overcapping on your percent pen, as you can see. But do keep in mind that with Obshard and Staff of Mirrodin and Rod of Tahuti, you are getting max percent pen, but with Obshard's passive, it does go over it. So you are doing 60% on your first ability casted. So that does do well as well. So you don't have to worry about too much with this build. If you do want to go against, if you're going up against tanky guys, then this is your build right here. If not, then you're going to go into your double squish build with your Divine, Staff of Mirrodin, Soul Reaver, and Tahuti, and that is your build. Otherwise, you're going to go into Pendulum of the Ages to give you even more cooldown. So you're going to have max cooldown with this build. As you can see, you have 40%, and that is that. If not, then you sell it for your Ethereal Staff too. A lot of min-max with this build, specifically with Hebo. And with that, that is your general Hebo build. All right, fourth from the last, we have Hel. She is an interestingly built one. She doesn't do a lot of the regular damage burst build. You can build her like that. I don't think that's the best for her, seeing as she has a unique kit with her stance switch as well as her healing. She does have a lot of items that do really well with her. So instead of Conduit Gem, we're definitely going Sands of Time, seeing as she is a stance switcher and she has to use a lot of abilities. So she's constantly running out of mana. So you always want to go your Sands of Time. After that, Spear of Desolation, or first item, Spear of Desolation, is what you want to go. At this point, you have 1350 gold. After buying your bow, you're going to go straight into 2 health potions, and then obviously your 1 mana potion here, seeing as you need that with her. With this, you can either go into a Spear of Desolation, or your Divine Ruin. Depending on their team comp, they do have healing. Divine is your choice. Otherwise, you're going into Spear of Desolation most of the time. From there, we have an interesting build here, or an interesting item here. We do have our breastplate of regrowth. You're going to want to build this almost all of the time, even if you're only going up against like a hunter in the back line and they have 2 guardians, for example. Breastplate of regrowth is really good with her kit. She does have, like I said, with Aphrodite, a consistent heal with her 3 in her 2 stance or her 1. I'm sorry, she does have a consistent heal in her switched healing stance with her 3, and a heal with her 1 if you're able to hit it on a teammate. So you are healing a lot with your abilities and very consistently. So Breastplate of Regrowth will give you that extra healing with movement speed, and you get a little bit more power, seeing as you get cooldown with this build too. So at this point, you're already at 30% cooldown. And then from there, definitely going to go into our Obshard most of the time. Obshard is obviously just a good item, and like I said earlier, you can always just build Obshard in almost all builds, and it will be good. Then we're going to go into our Soul Reaver, and then finally we're going into our Rod of Tahuti. So a very similar build path with 1 or 2 caveats, being Sands of Time is always necessary, as well as your Breastplate of Regrowth. Obviously your healing, depending. That is your Hel build. You can go into your Pendulum of Aegis to min-max your percent or your cooldown, as now you have infinite cooldown, or you capped cooldown. If not, then of course Ethereal Staff, always there for you as well. And that is your general Hel build. All right, moving into Hera, a very cringe god. She either is one of the worst gods in the game, or she just doesn't die with her 3 Argus combo. But basically, Hera is just her Argus. She does a lot of damage with her 1 and her 2, but specifically, you get her for the Argus shield, as she doesn't have consistent getaway. But she overall is an okay god. She isn't one of the best. She isn't one of the worst. She is just a standard god currently. She does have an interesting build that I do like on her. So one of your items you're going to want to go into most of the time is Sands of Time. Conduit on her is fine. It's just not as good as Sands of Time, seeing as you're going to be using your abilities a lot of the time. Or her abilities won't get too much benefit off of Conduit Gem. From here, we're going to go into Chronos Pendant just because you can. You're going to get 30% cooldown right off the bat. I always forget to do the start here. You do want to go into your first tier of Chronos, then you're going to go into your bow, and because you do have 1250 gold here, you can go into 3 health pots and 2 mana pots or 2 multi-pots, whichever one you feel is better. Then we're going to go into our Chronos. Then, let's see. We're definitely going to go into our Obshard right now. Obshard on her is really good. It's just really good on her. You're going to be getting a lot of percent pen with her abilities, and her Argus is going to be doing a lot of damage with that too. If you don't know, in her passive, she does have, she gets more cooldown reduced depending on her autos and abilities that you land on her. So this is going to be really good, as well as you're going to have 30% cooldown. Plus your Obshard is going to be doing a fuck ton of damage against them with your 1 and 2 combo and your Argus. From here, we're going to go into a Staff of Mirrodin. Now, like I said, you can build Obshard all the time if you want on any god. One specific thing with Hera you can do is you can do the regular build with either Spear of Desolation or Divine, and that will do really well. But if they don't have healing, then of course you can just go straight into your Obshard if you want to. I'm going to put Divine up here as a potential just in case, because healing is always if healing is a problem, then you're always going to want to prioritize Divine earlier into the game. After that, we're going to go into Soul Reaver. We're going to go into Soul Reaver, and then last item, we're going to go into Rod of Tahuti, and this will definitely max out your percent penetration. One thing I wanted to highlight with Staff of Mirrodin, with her ult, she does get increased damage, so a lot of the times you will ult, use your 2-1 combo, and you definitely just will delete them, on top of Argus doing even more damage. That's specifically why you want Staff of Mirrodin too. Additionally, this does cap out your percent or your cooldown as well, which is really good too, seeing as Sands of Time, you're never really going to get upgraded. Now, of course, if you don't have, or if there are a lot of healers on your team, then you're going to want to have to sacrifice Staff of Mirrodin for it. Your Divine, of course, earlier into the build, as Divine is going to be very important. So Divine, Obshard, Soul Reaver, Tahuti, and that would be your counter to a healing team. Otherwise, your regular build is going to be into the Obshard, Staff of Mirrodin, Soul Reaver, Tahuti route. And then, of course, late game, you can go Pendulum of the Aegis, but you are going to overcap a little bit on cooldown, but it's okay. If not, you can always go the alternate timeline if you don't want to, if you want to min-max everything, seeing as this does give you 20% cooldown and you will overcap with that. Otherwise, you are probably going to sell your starter and you'll just go into Ethereal Staff, so you don't really have to worry about too much your starters, and that is your Hera build. All right, we have one of the newer mages. We do have Chel. With her, you definitely want to go Sands of Time, as she's going to be throwing out her abilities a lot. She does have a lot of CC, so Sands of Time is going to be good, as you're basically throwing out all of your abilities. And with her, you are using a lot of mana because her 1 is on a very short cooldown. But with that, we still want to go into our Chronos Pendant. I think Chronos Pendant is good. Now you can think, another item you can go instead is just going straight into your Spear of Desolation. But I think even though her 1 is on a very quick cooldown, her other cooldowns are relatively normal cooldowns. So Chronos Pendant is going to be good there. After going bow, we do have 250 gold left over, so we're going to go into 3 healing pots, and then we're going to go into 2 mana pots. Then, like I said, we're going to go into our Chronos pendant. We're going to have 30% cooldown, and this MP5 is going to give us a lot, as you are throwing out your abilities quite frequently. After this, you're going to go into your Spear of Desolation, your Divine, and your Obshard Dilemma. So, of course, Spear of Desolation, Divine, just for squishies. If not, then just go to your Obshard, Spear of Desolation, Obshard. If they have healing and they're tanky, then just go into Divine, into Obshard. But preferably just go the Spear of Desolation Obshard route. And then, of course, Soul Reaver into Rod of Tahuti. And that'll level out your build, as you have a lot of stats with all of this. She is a very good procer of Ethereal Staff too, so Ethereal Staff is your other option if you can't go Pendulum of the Aegis. Pendulum of the Aegis will overcap you, but it is fine. Just because it doesn't min-max your cooldown doesn't mean that the passive, that the item is still busted. So Pendulum of the Aegis, if you can upgrade it. If not, then you can go into your Ethereal Staff, sell it, and get into your Ethereal Staff. And that is your E-Shell build. All right, second from the last. I'm already looking at the time. We're almost 2 hours in. This is why I wanted to do this 2-part video. So we're gonna go into Janus. Okay, well, let me think of Janus. Janus is a god that isn't really that good in Joust. They did have a non-conquest buff to him, which destroyed with his 2. I think they got rid of it, or they either reduced it or something of that sort. So he is definitely not as good as he once was, but he still is a okay, not really that great of a god in Joust. But with him, there is a very good min-max build to get a lot of things with him. I'll explain a little bit more with his ult with his ult as well to explain why I go this build. But first of all, we're going to go into our Conduit Gem and our first tier of Chronos. With this build, you're going to have 250. So after you build your bow, you're going to go into 3 health pots, and you're going to go into your 2 multi-potions. After that, of course, we're going to go into our Chronos pendant. And then you have a couple of build paths from here. You go into Conduit Gem, Chronos. You can go into your Spear of Desolation. Spear of Desolation. Basically, you're given Dilemma. Then you go in your Obshard. And you have your Dilemma. If you're going against 2 squishies, you do the double Divine or the double Flat Pen. If you're going just up against a team, a 2 frontline team, you go into Spear of Deso, into Obshard. If there's healing, then you go Divine, Obshard. But we're going to pretend like, with this build, we're going to pretend like they are a double tank team. We're going to have Obshard. Now, specifically at this point, you have 20% flat pen or percent pen with a 20% in one of your abilities making it 40. But generally speaking, you have 20% pen. But with their recent add to Janus's ult, as you can see, with every increase in your ult, you're going to get even more magical penetration, penetration. So you do want to make sure you prioritize upping your ult. Now in Joust, it's not as impactful as it would be in Conquest, but it is still very, very good and does destroy their health bar. So Obshard is going to be there, right there. Now, of course, like you saw, his ult starts off at 10%. So at this point, you do have 30% penetration, and ultimately you can build into any other item and not have percent pen, and you will cap out on your percent pen, and that's how you want to if that's how you want to min-max your build. But preferably, what I like to do after this is you can go into your Soul Reaver, and then last item, Rod of Tahuti. Now, like I said, you're going to have, at the end of the game, you're going to have max percent pen, and with this one, you're going to actually overcap, seeing as you get 30 right now, plus the 20 on your ult. But with Rod of Tahuti being one of the best items in the game, it doesn't even matter that you're overcapping. So always keep in mind that just because you're overcapping on something doesn't mean that it's a bad build, especially with Rod of Tahuti being that item, because Rod of Tahuti is one of the best items, if not the best item in the game in terms of Joust. From here, you can go, obviously, you're going to upgrade into your Gem of Focus. If not, you sell it for Ethereal Staff. And that is your Janus build. There is one other build that I do like going instead. But this is your general build if you want to go this build path. So this is your regular, your just general build. After that, let's go into our preferred build. We're going to go into Conduit. Then you're going to go, I shouldn't have actually deleted that because it is the same start. Let's just pretend like the start is the same. I don't care. We're going to pretend like the start is the same. So Conduit, you're going to go into Conduit. After that, you're going to go into Chronos Pendant, very similar to the last one. Then you're going to go into either Spear of Desolation, or you're going to go into Divine Rune. So at this point, you're going to get that same stuff. Spear of Desolation is just going to be your one flat pen item that you will be using. Now, of course, if you do have healing, they're going to substitute that for divine, and then that'll be your one flat item. But let's pretend like they're not going up against healing, and you go into Spear of Desolation. From here, you're going to go into your Staff of Mirrodin. Staff of Mirrodin is really good with Janus as its passive stacks really well with his ult. You ult in, you ult through. Preferably, you're ulting through a wall, and you're not showing them that you're ulting. You hit them, and then as soon as you go through that your ult portal, you should be able to use your 2 and do even more damage. So that is why your Staff of Mirrodin is here. It also gives you another % of cooldown, and that will max out your cooldown with 40% with your Spirit of Desolation, min-maxing that. But on top of that, you're also getting a little bit of magical penetration. From there, we're going to go our obvious Soul Reaver. And then after that, our last item will be a Rod of Tahuti. And with this build, you are min-maxing everything, which I do like about this build. You're min-maxing your % pen, as you do have 20 right now, but with his ult, once you upgrade it to level or you upgrade it to 20, you will get your min-maxing your % pen. On top of that, you're getting your min-max cooldown, and on top of that, you're getting a little bit of flat pen. Now, similar to the first build, you're going to go into Gem of Focus, or you're going to go into your Ethereal Staff. Now, this is the build that I generally like to go instead. This is when I go into Conquest more often than not, but other than that, that is... Let me do that. That is that. And then, of course, you sell it for Ethereal Staff if you can't get your starter. And that is your Janus other build, my preferred one. And then last up on this part, like I said, this is just part 1. Part 2 will be coming out very, very short after. We have Kukulkan, or how you weirdos like to say it, Kukulkan. That's just a little ick, or that's actually kind of cringe to say. That's just one thing that I don't like about him, is that people will call him Kukulkan, but he literally says his name when you click him. He says Kukulkan. But enough of that tangent. We're going to go into the build. With him, he is a very mana-centric god. His passive, if you don't know, increases magical power by 4% based on how much maximum mana that he has. So the more mana in your pool that you have, the total amount, not the amount that you have up at a certain time, the total amount of mana that you can possibly ever have, it's going to be scaled off of that by 4%. So as much mana as you want to put on this god is what you should be thinking about. So Sands of Time is going to be there for you in terms of that. Gives you a lot of, it gives you cooldown and a lot of MP5, seeing as you're going to be throwing out his abilities a lot. From there, always build book on Kukulkan. If you're not building book, you're trolling. I'm just going to say that flat out, because you always need to build book no matter what on Kukulkan. From there, you have 13. Wait, how much gold do you have? 650. Yeah, 1350. So you're only going to be able to buy 2 potions on top of your preferred one. Let's do one multi. And then you're going to go into your recipe, which is going to be your bow, of course. But like I said, you're going to go into Book of Thoth, and that will give you a lot of mana. It's passive, once fully stacked, will give you, it used to be 1,000, but I can't remember now, it's 750, I think. So this is going to give you a lot of mana, and it is going to give you a lot of power with Book of Thoth already to begin with, but this does give flat pen too. But the mana that you're going to get from this is primarily for his passive to give him more power. Let's go ahead and equip that. Of course, at this point, you need to get your Chalice. I keep forgetting. But your Chalice after you build Book of Thoth. From there, there are really only a couple options. This is the general path that I like to go. Now, of course, you can do the Spear of Desolation I'm just going to put this up here at the top because it is not necessary. Spirit of Desolation, Divine Rune. Now you can go the Spirit of Desolation. I don't like it on Kuku, seeing as there are better items on him and you need more mana. But if they do have healing, then you absolutely need to go Divine Rune next. No questions asked. You do need to go Divine, but if they don't have any healing, I don't prefer Spirit of Desolation. You can go if you want, but what I like to do is I like to go Obshard. Obshard on him on most in any type of team comp is going to be good, specifically with his one. His one is on a very short cooldown. It is a slow, so it is up a lot of the time. So you're going to be smashing with your one. You're going to be constantly throwing out your one, and so you're going to be throwing that out naked a lot of the times. You use your tornado a lot, but a lot of the times you will just throw out your one. So you will be getting 40% on your Obshard a lot of times whenever you use your one. So I do like going Obshard. After that, I do like building Poly on him. Poly is an exceptionally good item for him. He uses his one, he uses his auto, and it is a very good combination. On top of the fact that it does give 300 mana, so it does stack with your passive. So not only are you doing that, but you're also getting even more power with it. So I do like going Poly around a third item. Then, of course, we're going to go into Soul Reaver, but I mean, Soul Reaver is always built on gods at this point in the game, but specifically with him, this does give 300 mana. So keep that in mind, that it's going to do even, you're going to be getting even more power from him. And then, of course, your last item is just going to be Rod of Tahuti. Rod of Tahuti is just one of your best items in the game in terms of your late game selection. So this is your Kuku build. Now, one thing I do want to, I'm not going to put it there because you don't need to buy it. Tablet of Destinies is another one, as it does give you a lot of mana, and its passive is good. One thing I don't like doing is building this because of how hard it is to stack compared to other gods like Baba, as Baba is able to throw out a lot of abilities in a very quick short time. Now your one, you can argue that your one is very easy to stack it with, but then again, is not as easy to hit as it is for Baba's abilities. So that is one thing in mind. If you do think you're going to be able to stack this relatively quick, and then because you're in Joust, you're not really going to. But if you do think it, you can always buy Tablet, as this does give you a lot of mana. But preferably, this is the build path that I want to go. These are just your alternatives. Of course, Divine is there for your anti-heal. Other than that, you're going to upgrade into your Pendulum of Aegis, of course. You're going to upgrade into your Pendulum of Aegis. It does give you that extra cooldown as well, which should give you 20 at this point. And then if you can't, then you just go Ethereal Staff. And that is your Kuku build. I actually use all the slots up. That is your Kuku build. And with that, if I can, there we go. That is your Kuku build. And now with that, that is your Mages Part 1 full build. So we do go back here. Like I said, we're not even we're one less than halfway there from finishing it. So like I said, from Agni to Kuku is one part, and then we're going to do Merlin to Chang'e at the last part in part 2. So we're going to finish that up relatively quick. I'll probably have this up very soon. And then after that, the next part will come out either a day after or hours after. I will make sure of that. I believe I'm just going to do part 2 tomorrow, and I'll make sure to have that up soon after. But yeah, that is all of your mages from Agni to Kukulkan. And well, you know, I hope you did take away something from this video. If not, you know, you can always just argue in the comment section below what items you think are better. But I know a lot of you wanted to see this, so yeah, I hope this helped a lot. If you have any comment, if you want any suggestions, or you have any comments you'd like to say, do let me know in the comment section down below. After the mage, after part 2, we're going to be doing assassins, and then warriors and guardians, and then we'll be done. But like I said, this does take a lot of time, as I am freeballing this, but it does take a lot to talk about. We're basically I'm looking at my recording, it's 2 hours in, so we do have to edit it down, but basically, yeah, it does take a lot of time. So but that's basically all I have for you. So other than that, thank you guys for watching.